Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Israel, and this is Parashat Chayei. Genesis 23:1 to 25:19. This is the life of Sarah, and this one is called The Princess Bride. I've given something very similar about a year ago, and it has been widely requested that I bring it back because this one has a personal message for myself as well. And so we'll kind of take a look at that. We'll expand upon it. So we're going to speak of the life of Sarah, the death of Sarah, the life of Abraham, the death of Abraham. There's a lot going on here. So at the end of last week's Parsha, after the binding of Isaac, the Midrash gives us a beautiful and heartbreaking account of the last days of Sarah Imenu, Sarah our mother. And Satan, he went to Sarah just like he tried to distract Avraham and Yitzchak from going through with it. He also paid Sarah a visit. So Satan went to Sarah, and he appeared to her in the figure of an old and very humble and meek man, just like he did with Abraham and Isaac. This is exactly at the same moment, this is the same time as the binding was about to take place. In other words, as soon as this was happening, he went away from there, and then he went to Sarah. And he said unto her, Dost thou not know all the work that Abraham has made with thine only son this day? For he took Isaac and built an altar and killed him and brought him up as a sacrifice upon the altar. And Isaac cried and wept before his father, and he looked not at him, neither did he have compassion over him. And Satan repeated these words, and he went away from her. And Sarah heard all the words of Satan, and she imagined him to be an old man from amongst the sons of men who had been with her son, and had come and told her these things. In other words, wow, he might have seen what went down over there. And Sarah lifted up her voice and wept and cried out bitterly on account of her son. And she threw herself upon the ground, and she cast dust upon her head, and she said, O my son, Isaac, my son, oh, that I had this day died instead of thee. And she continued to weep and said, It grieves me for thee, O my son Isaac. Oh, that I had died this day. In thy stead, And she still continued to weep and said, It grieves for me, thee after that I have reared thee, and I have brought thee up. Now my joy is turned into mourning over thee. And that had a longing for thee, and cried and prayed to God till I bare thee at 90 years old. And now hast thou served this day for the knife and the fire to be made an offering? But I console myself with thee, my son, in its being the word of the Lord, for thou didst perform the command of thy God. For who can transgress the word of our God, in whose hands is the soul of every living creature? Now listen to this. Thou art just, O Lord our God, for all thy works are good and righteous. For I also am rejoiced with thy word, which thou didst command, and whilst mine eye weepeth bitterly, my heart rejoiceth. You recall this from last week? This is exactly what was described of Abraham and Isaac. Sarah was one of them. You understand? They're in the same spot, spiritually speaking. And Sarah laid her head upon the bosom of one of her handmaids, and she became as still as a stone. She afterward rose up and went about making inquiries till she came to Hebron. Because remember, they were in Beersheba, so she walked about 60 kilometers to Hebron. And she inquired of all those who she met walking on the road, and no one could tell her what had happened to her son. Could you imagine? Have you seen my son? Have you seen my son? And she came with her maidservants and menservants to Kiryat Arba, which is Hebron. And she asked concerning her son, and she remained there while she sent some of her servants to seek where Abraham had gone with Isaac. They went to seek him in the house of Shem and Evel. Maybe they went there. And they could not find him. And they sought throughout the land, and he was not there. And behold, Satan came to Sarah in the shape of an old man, and he came and stood before her. And he said unto her, I spoke falsely unto thee. For Abraham did not kill his son, and he is not dead. And when she heard the word, her joy was so exceedingly violent on account of her son, that her soul went out through joy. She died and was gathered to her people. She died of joy. That's a lot of joy. And when Abraham had finished his service, he returned with his son Isaac to his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and they came home. And Abraham sought for Sarah, and he could not find her. And he made inquiries concerning her. And they said unto him, She went as far as Hebron to seek you both where you had gone, for thus was she informed. And Abraham and Isaac went to her to Hebron, and when they found that she was dead, they lifted up their voices and wept bitterly over her. And Isaac fell upon his mother's face and wept over her. And he said, O my mother, how hast thou left me? And where hast thou gone? Oh, how hast thou left me? And Abraham and Isaac wept greatly, and all their servants wept with them on account of Sarah, and they mourned her a great and heavy mourning. Sarah, our mother, she was truly the wife of Abraham, the mother of Isaac, and the daughter of the Most High God, El Elyon. Even as she wept bitterly, which she believed to be the passing of her beloved son Isaac, she was filled with joy, knowing that they were fulfilling the word of God, exactly the same word, to describe Abraham and Isaac's dealings back in the Akedah last week. She truly was a righteous woman before God and man. And one more thing, though. You have to understand, I just read from the Midrash, this is from the book of Jasher. You can't just read the book of Jasher or any other Midrash on its own. Because at the end of the day, only the 5 books of Moses are Kodesh Kodashim, okay? The Holy of Holies. All these extra biblical texts very well could be true, but they always play second fiddle to the infallible word of God, okay? Which again are only the 5 books of Moses, not the Nevi'im and not the Ketuvim. We hold by them, but again, there are still these discrepancies here and there. They don't really change a lot of the meaning, but the 5 books, undoubtedly, man could not have written this. So, our portion begins. Chapter 23, verse 1. Vayiyu Chayei Sarah, 100 shana, 20 shana, 7 shanim, shnei Chayei Sarah. And the life of Sarah was 100 years, and 20 years, and 7 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died in Kiryat Arba, which is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to eulogize Sarah and to bewail her. Now in the Torah, and also in certain Chumashim, the letter Kaf in the word livkota is a small one. So in the Hebrew it says, Vatamat Sarah bekiryat arba hu Hebron be'eretz Knan, in the land of Canaan, vayavo Avraham lispod Sarah ve'livkota, to eulogize Sarah and bewail her. Livkota. So livkota comes from the word livkot, bechi, to cry. Or in this case, it's translated to bewail. But again, the letter kaf in that word is small in the Torah. So the question is, why is it a smaller size than the rest? And the answer is because Abraham knew just how righteous Sarah was, that she perfectly completed her calling in this world. And so when he cried over her physical body. He missed her. She was the love of his life, and she was no more. He was obviously sad, but he did not lament over her soul because he knew she went straight to Gan Eden. No stops along the way. The Vilna Gaon says that she was a special kind of tzadikah, that when it says lispod, to eulogize in this pasuk, in that very same verse, it says that the reward for hesped is elevation. So what does he mean by this? Rashi explains that the meaning of leharim, to lift up, is a loud wailing that would cause all those to hear to partake in the wailing. And what would be the purpose of all of this? The purpose of the eulogy is to awaken the congregation to weeping and repenting and doing tshuva. By gathering around to bury and remember those who passed, we each have an opportunity to learn from their lives and adopt even just one positive attribute from them, thereby bettering ourselves while honoring and elevating the soul of the deceased. In a sense, this is another way that their life force, or rather their light force, their essence carries on in this world with us, through us. Now, have you ever asked yourself why this parsha is called the life of Sarah when it talks about her death? The answer is in the parsha itself. It's because of Sarah's life that we are here today, all of us. And so you will see that in this parsha, everything happens as a result of Sarah. There are only 5 parashot in the Torah that have people's names in the titles. That's Sarah, Yitro, Jethro, Korach, Balak, and Pinchas. All the important events in this portion don't mention Sarah except for 5 of them. So she's mentioned 5 times. Twice in the beginning, once during the burial, in the middle, and twice in the end. And I'll touch on those points later. So now we have a contract that Abraham secures the burial place. When Sarah passed away, the very first contract was witnessed, written, and established. Listen up, kids, because this is how it was done back then, and this is still valid for today. Verse 16. And Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out to Ephron the silver that he had named in the hearing of the sons of Heth. 400 shekels of silver accepted by the merchant. Okay? We have an amount agreed upon. And so the field of Ephron was in Machpelah, facing Mamre. Remember, he sat in the plains of Mamre? Was established as Abraham's possession. This included the field and the cave that was in it, and all the trees that were in the field, which were within its entire border around. So now we have the borders and boundaries. It was to Abraham as a possession before the eyes of the sons of Het, in the presence of all who had come within the gate of the city. We have witnesses. So we have terms and conditions, we have an exchange, and we have multiple witnesses. And if you read the extra biblical text, it's actually written down in a contract. So, if there's any doubt as to who owns this plot of land, Hebron and Kiryat Arba, you could tell, United Nations, they got a problem with it. It's written right here in the Torah going back almost 4,000 years. Sorry. Carbon date that. Also, Abraham called it the cave of Machpelah. Why Machpelah? Lehachpil, kefel, becomes, it's from the word to double. And why is it called coming from the word double? In this very spot, Adam and Eve were buried. Abraham and Sarah were to be buried. And later on, we would see Isaac and Rivka, and then we would see Jacob and Leah. Ma'ata Machpelah. 2 of them. So you could go and check the gravesite in Hebron today. Of course, that's not the actual gravesite because the Arabs are controlling the actual grave sites, and they're not giving it back. Interestingly enough, there's one single person buried in Machpelah, as in not with a mate, and that is Esav. And we will discuss that at a later point in time. So now we have the charge. The duty of a parent. What is the duty of a parent? Because now we're switching gears over here. The duty of a parent, especially a father, is to provide for the home. Okay? In other words, to give all its inhabitants the ability to grow and strengthen both physically and spiritually. The father is responsible for a roof and 4 walls, clothing, food, and setting up his children with a teacher. Later on, teaching his children a profession so that they can, continue living, teaching them how to fish, if you will. This is the duty of the father. Now, the duty of the mother and the wife is to be the living Torah in the home. We've discussed this in the past year. She is not required to sit down and teach Torah, but rather live it on her day-to-day. And by it, I mean all which the father teaches. The father teaches, the mother puts it into practice. So the father is going to be, let's say, the physical teacher from the textbook, and then the live action person would be the mother. So this is how they work together. So in other words, the dynamic between the 2 parental figures is that of the written Torah and of the oral Torah. Great, I have this. Now how does this work? Oh, that's how it works. There we go. There's the Torah. Another way to look at it is like placing the holy Torah, the wife, who is the Torah, within the ark, the Aron, and that's the husband who guards her and protects her. As Abraham was advancing in age, it was his responsibility to provide for a wife for his son Isaac, a godly woman of valor, who would embody the Spirit of God and keep the light within the home. One who would continue the good work of Sarah, while of course being their own person in their own right. So chapter 23, verse 2. And Abraham said to his servant, the elder of his house, who ruled over all that was his, please place your hand under my thigh. So this servant, who is a servant, it says, Vayomer Avam el avdo. Eved, servant, slave. This servant was Eliezer. He was Abraham's number one guy. Eliezer was given to Abraham by Nimrod of all people, as we discussed a few weeks ago in Lech Lecha, after he failed in burning Abraham alive in the fiery furnace. He's like, okay, take a whole bunch of gold and silver and take my top guy, and that was Eliezer. Some people say, again, that Eliezer might have also been Og Melech HaBashan. Different debates on that. So here Abraham made the servant swear that he will find a wife for his son Isaac from his brother's land up north, not from anywhere else. And whatever happens, Isaac must not leave his place, meaning the land of Israel. He says, you cannot take of the daughters of Canaan. No, no, no. Go back to where I came from Ur Kasdim. So also, Isaac was the only patriarch who actually never left the land of Israel. He was going to go down to Egypt. God said, no, you stay here, I'll take care of you. Because there was a famine. So he was born there and he died there. Now the servant was worried about his responsibility. How could he possibly know the right woman for this job? He expressed his concern to Abraham, and so Abraham calmed him by telling him this. Verse 7. The Lord, God of the heavens, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my birth, and who spoke about me, and who swore to me, saying, to your seed will I give this land. He will send his angel before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. Hu ishlach mal'acho lefanecha velakachta isha lebni misham, from there. And if the woman will not wish to go after you, you will be absolved of this, my oath. Only do not return my son back there. That's it. He gave him one task. Go do your thing. The angel of the Lord is going with you. And if the woman does not want to go with you, you're done. Your job's done. So, you see, there was a Lech Lecha for a reason. And this union of Isaac and Rivka could only be established in the physical land of Israel. This is a land where miracles happen. This is the land where the Torah was called and meant to be fulfilled. This is the land where every last Jew has to be and has to live in order for Mashiach to return. We got to build this up, people. What are you waiting for? So the servant swore to his master, and the servant took 10 camels of his master's camels, and he went. Look what it says. And all the best of his master was in his hand. V'chol tuv adonav beyado. And he arose and he went to Aram Naharaim, to the city of Nachol. V'chol tuv adonav. This goes beyond silver and gold, all the goodness of his master. I mean, with 10 men and 10 camels, he couldn't possibly carry all the best of his master Abraham, right? Abraham had a lot more than just 10 camels and 10 men could carry. And the camels probably carried the men too. So, what does the text actually mean? The servant has the blessing of Abraham as given to him by God. He extended it to him. And what was the blessing? The ability and understanding of favor and sight. When we have this, when we understand the way that Abraham saw things, we can literally manifest things according to the laws of nature, which God, of course, created. Nature has laws, right? But we are above that because we belong to him. The seed of Abraham can command nature. You just have to know how to do it. As I briefly mentioned last week, Abraham was a master of this. He then passed it along to Isaac, and later on Jacob would become a grandmaster. But what good is all this power without divine guidance? Enter the angel of the Lord. This was in the merit of Abraham that he and all the seed of Abraham would receive. that the angel of the Lord walk before us and lead us as we follow in his footsteps, not veer to the right nor to the left. Now, you're going to see more on this in the book of Exodus. And yet still, he, the servant, was afraid, rightfully so. He was hesitant. He understood his mission, that which he swore to Abraham to complete, the magnitude and the responsibility to secure the continuity of the people of God. Abraham put it in this guy's hands. It almost doesn't make sense, but again, God always chooses the least likely candidate. A servant whose heart, yes, was not even pure going on this mission. Eliezer had secretly hoped that he would be the inheritor of Abraham's blessings and belongings. Nevertheless, watch what happens next. The prayer. And he said, this is the servant, verse 12, O Lord, the God of my master Abraham, please cause to happen to me today and perform loving kindness with my master Abraham. Now let's not forget that this servant grew up in the house of Abraham. This man knew God and his ways. He knew Torah. He did. And yet still he prayed in the merit of the God of Abraham. He understood the order of things. It goes through the tzaddik, the righteous one of God. This is part of the Sefirot. Tzaddik Yesod Olam, the foundation of the world, of all of existence, is the tzaddik, is the righteous one. And in this case, it was Abraham. He was the only righteous one by which the world stood. But here, he does something that most of us often do, and some of us might not even be aware of the fact that we do it. And let this be an important lesson to us all. The servant put God in a box. What's in the box, God? Behold, I am standing by the water fountain. The Hebrew says, Hine anochi nitzav al ein hamayim. Ein is the eye of the water. And the daughters of the people of the city are coming out to draw water. And it will be, look at the conditions that he gives God. And it will be that the maiden whom I will say, lower your pitcher, and I will drink. And she will then say, drink, and I will also water your camels. Her have you designated for your servant, for Isaac, and through her may I know that you have performed loving kindness with my master. God, you do it exactly like this. I'm going to call her, and then I'm going to say this, and she's going to say that, and then this will happen. All right. So what's happening here right now? Again, because his heart wasn't exactly pure. He wanted to be absolved of this mission. He was trying to give God an impossible task here. The one that I choose, and then says this, and she says that, and then I'll know, and through her, and then she'll water 10 camels, by herself, which is no small task for any grown man. Let's just see what kind of a miracle was about to happen over here. An average camel drinks 200 liters of water in 3 minutes. Camels just arrived at their destination. They are thirsty, no doubt. That's 53 gallons per camel. Times 10, that's 2,000 liters of water, or 530 gallons. If the bucket from the well was, let's say, 5 liters, she would have had to draw it 400 times. That's a long, full workout right there. That's 2,000 kilos, or 4,400 pounds, that this poor, unsuspecting young maiden would have to carry back and forth all by herself in order for God to prove to Eliezer that she was the one. It wasn't only the words, that she's going to draw the water for the camels. No way that a young maiden will be able to do this. I have this image in my head of God being like, is there anything else? Okay, that's all you got, fine. Challenge accepted. You're going to love this. So first of all, the Hebrew says, behold, I am standing upon the eye of the water. And just like Abraham saw the men as angels in last week's Parsha through his mind's eye, so did the servant of Abraham. But this is where it gets a bit tricky, because he himself could not see like Abraham, but someone else could. Verse 15. ויהי הוא טרם קילה לדבר, והנה רבקה יוצאת, אשר יולדה לבתואל, בן מילכה, אשת נחור, אחי אברהם, וחדה על שכמה. Now he had not yet finished speaking, and behold, Rebekah came out, who had been born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, and her pitcher was on her shoulder. Let me tell you something extraordinary about this verse. The Hebrew says, Vayehihu terem kila ledaber. The word, now this is also going to get confusing because he in English is she and who in English is he. It's kind of like a who's on first type of situation, so just bear with me. Or just learn Hebrew. Oh my God. Okay, anyway, stick around. So the word he, or who in Hebrew, he in English. Again, let's start over. Vayehihu terem kila ledaber. So the word who, Hebrew, which means he, that guy, the servant, it's out of place grammatically in Hebrew. And it's grammatically unnecessary in Hebrew. Nevertheless, it is there, so we best understand the who he is, right? The who and the he. The conclusion from Chazal, from our sages, is that the he who, or the who he, is the name of God. One of the beautiful references brought forth in this regard is Psalm 100. Know that the Lord is God, he made us, and we are his, people of the flock and his pasture. De'u ki Adonai hu Elohim hu asanu velo anachnu amo vetzon mereato. So this is how they make the connection. So this shows us that God himself was with the servant in the form of his angel. How do we know? Because Abraham said, I'm sending the dude with you. So this who he very specifically is his angel. Abraham says that the angel who walked before him. Jacob says it was the angel who redeemed him from evil, the angel of his fathers Abraham and Isaac. This is the same angel who would guide Joseph to his brothers and who would take over from Moses as they entered into the land of Israel. So going back to verse 15, when the servant began to pray, the angel of the Lord prayed with him, within him, for him, over him. Why? Because he prayed in the merit and for the sake of Abraham. That's it. And what happened? He was not even finished speaking, and already his words had come into fruition. Now the maiden was of very comely appearance, a virgin, and no man had been intimate with her. And she went down to the fountain, and she filled her pitcher, and went up. How did he see all this? He was using his own eyes, but the Ruach HaKodesh that rested upon him during the prayer, it was acting on his behalf. And the servant ran towards her. Please, let me sip a little water from your pitcher. Why did the servant run to her specifically? He didn't know who she was. She drew some water. Okay, what's the big deal? What did he see? Here's what he saw. As she approached the water rose up to give itself to her, as her essence and presence would command the water itself. What is water? Water is life. Water is Torah. And she was just called Na'ara, but the thing is, it's spelt without a hey in the end. So without the punctuation, it could be Hana'ar. Na'ar is a hint towards Mashiach, because one of his titles of Mashiach is a Na'ar. And later on, we could also see that Joshua is referred to as Hana'ar, towards the end of Moses' life. Now, this is also alluding later on to Moses, who commanded water, and Miriam, in whose merit the children of Israel were watered. Be'er Miriam, Miriam's wellspring, followed them for 40 years. Right? These are all Mashiach types. Moshe, Miriam, Aaron, all three of them were Mashiach types. And this young maiden is now commanding water. Who else could command the water to rise, to split, to calm? The servant saw this. And that's why he ran to her. And what did she say? She said, "Drink, my lord." And she hastened and lowered her pitcher to her hand, and she gave him to drink. It was up here. And she finished giving him to drink, and she said, "I will also draw for your camels until they will have finished drinking." Maybe they were bigger than average camels, who knows? But we know that's at least 2,000 liters of water that this young maiden just drew out of the well. Superhuman strength. And she hastened and she emptied her pitcher into the trough, and she ran again to the well to draw water, and she drew for all his camels. And the man was astonished at her, standing silent, waiting to know whether the Lord had caused his way to prosper or not. Or not? Or not? Are these not the specifications that he had given God? Did she not technically already pass this impossible test? I got a better question for you. Where did the servant go? I didn't see him anymore. Should I read the last verse again? It's all about the servant. And the man was astonished at her, standing silent, waiting to know whether the Lord had caused his way to prosper or not. Where's the servant? It's not a servant anymore. It's a man. Oh, but God wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Verse 22. Now it came about when the camels, 2,000 liters, had finished drinking, that the man took a golden nose ring weighing half a shekel, and 2 bracelets for her hands weighing 10 gold shekels. And he said, "Whose daughter are you? Please tell me, is there a place for us for lodging in your father's house?" And she said to him, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor." And she said to him, "Both straw and fodder are plentiful with us. There is also a place to lodge." See, when you put God in a box, you will always be humbled, for better or for worse. It's like saying, "God, I raise you water for me and for my camels." And God responds by saying, "I'll see your water for you and for your camels, and I'll raise you a young girl with supernatural strength to be able to draw 530 gallons for you, your camels, and your entire caravan, and that water bends to her will." Oh, wait, I'm not done, son. She will then invite you into her father's house and feed you, clothe you, give you all warm beds, and take care of your needs, displaying the kind of hospitality only seen from one other house in the world. Oh yeah, and she's his niece too. Okay, this is where you fold, right? God answered, and when God answers, all you can do is drop to the floor. And the man kneeled and prostrated himself to the Lord. Amen. And he said, "Blessed is the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his loving kindness and his truth from my master. As for me, the Lord led me on the road to the house of my master's kinsman." And now, once he's there, there's a whole exchange that happens. So the exchange, there's a deep back and forth between the man over here and the family of Rivkah, including from her brother Lavan, who's the shadiest character in the Bible. But he does say something that's extremely Kabbalistic. He goes, "Vayan Lavan uBetuel vayomu me'Adonai yatza hadavar, lo nuchal ledaber elecha ra o tov." And Lavan and Bethuel answered and said, "The matter has emanated from the Lord. We cannot speak to you either bad or good." So you want to know how he knew these things? There is an opinion that Lavan was even a greater conjurer than Bilam would be. After all, he preceded Bilam by a few hundred years. And how do we know that he was a bad guy at this point just from this verse? Because it very specifically says that he spoke before his father. And Lavan and Bethuel answered. That's not how it works. The father speaks first. So again, he was brazen, he was a chutzpah, and he had no respect for his parents. It is said that God had already arranged every marriage 40 days before conception. Okay? We're talking in the spirit realm, of course. But I would venture to say that if that's the case, it goes back even further than that. Since God knows the end from the beginning, obviously, and created each and every one of us for this specific moment, we are all here together right now, he also created our other half. And our other half is perfect for us. From the moment the servant began to pray to God, a mystery man joined the story. See the switching back and forth between the servant and the man. You could look it up from chapter 24, verses 21 to 61. And where it closes with them both in the same verse. Because up until now, it's like, did he turn into the man? What's going on here? Verse 61. And Rebekah and her maidens arose and rode on the camels, and they followed the man, and the servant took Rebekah and left. ותקם רבקה ונערותיה ותרכבנה על הגמלים ותלכנה אחרי האיש ויקח העבד את רבקה וילך. It's the same thing. How come you never see Bruce Wayne and Batman in the same room, the same place? It's because they're the same person, right? But right here we see the servant and the man together, thereby showing us that there's something else or someone else guiding over here. Now we have this is the meeting. So this meeting between Isaac and Rivka has been written since the creation of the world. And this is why all who enter into the tent of Abraham may partake in the same hashgacha pratit, means personal oversight or personal protection. There's no wasting of time when the time has come. So in the very next verse, we see this. Now, I'll read it in Hebrew and then I'll read it in English. ויצחק בא מבאר לחי רועי, והוא יושב בארץ הנגב. ויצא יצחק לסוח בשדה לפנות ערב, וישא עיניו וירא, והנה גמלים באים. Now Isaac was on his way coming from Be'er Lachai Roi, and he dwelt in the land of the south. And Isaac went forth to pray in the fields towards evening, and he lifted his eyes and saw, and behold, camels were approaching. So at this point, Isaac is 40 years old, right? He just got back from 3 years of intense Torah study at the house of Shem, the same place where his father Abraham learned the ways of the Lord. He was 37 at the Akedah, and now he's 40 years old when this happens. So what was Isaac praying for? Why is there a well mentioned over here? Isaac was praying for the marriage of Israel to God. Knesset Israel, I've mentioned this before, it's the great and final gathering. And what is lasuach basadeh? Lasuach comes from the word siach, as in sicha, conversation. Basadeh, in the field. What is this field? This very, very particular field. Our sages say that he was conversing with God in the Garden of Eden. And when he lifted his eyes, he saw, and behold, camels were approaching. But Isaac wasn't the only one with the gift of sight. Now, I have mentioned this before. When Isaac was upon the altar, he had his earthly soul and his physical soul, and they both left him. The physical soul remained up there, and the earthly soul came back down here. So Isaac, for the rest of his life, he was as if he was a dead man. Not in a bad way, in a good way. He was barely connected to this world anymore. He was all in the spirit, because he quite literally gave his life. And it was because he gave his life, again, that we have an audience. So, verse 64. And Rebekah lifted her eyes and saw Isaac, and she let herself down from the camel. Let me read this to you in Hebrew. ותישא רבקה את עיניה ותראה את יצחק ותיפול מעל הגמל. So let's just put this in proportion. First of all, I just want you to notice something. Isaac, even though he was in like this, he was walking in the Garden of Eden, he first saw camels. Rivka first saw Isaac. In this world, it is the man who chooses the woman. or at least how it should be, not what's happening today, is the man's job to, to pursue the woman and say, I want you as my wife, But in the spirit, it is actually the woman who chooses the man. In fact, there are opinions that in Acharit Hayamim, after the days of Messiah, that the women will be the ones like, I want you to be my husband. And they'll be like, well, woo me. You understand? So it's like the whole thing's going to be reversed. So what I'm trying to say is she saw him first. Now the Hebrew says that she actually fell off the camel. Vatipol me'al hagamal. Lipol, to fall. She fell off the camel. But they explained she didn't really fall, but she sort of like, boom, got like God smacked in the face. She inclined in his direction. Her spirit was pulling her towards him. And how does she refer to him in the next verse? And she said to the servant, who is that man walking in the field towards us? And the servant said, he is my master. And she took the veil and she covered herself. See, she knew very, very well who he was, which is why she humbled herself and covered herself. That guy right there, she said, that's my husband. So now we have the wedding. And the servant told Isaac, see, after they saw each other and after they understood who they were, only then the servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. And Isaac brought her to the tent of Sarah, his mother. Hebrew says, Vayavi'a Yitzchak ha'ohala Sarah imo. Ohala, again. And he took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. Vayohava vayinachem Yitzchak achrei imo. And Isaac was comforted for the loss of his mother. Look at this. Abraham, who loved God and his son, passed on said love to his son, who then loved his wife. How often does the Torah say love in these interpersonal relationships? But here it is. This is love that cannot only shatter or shape the heavens, but will fulfill the prophecy on which the world stands, on which everything was made, and by which we must all partake should we desire a seat at that table. The love that is going to produce twinsies, to be continued on that, of course. Now the Midrash says that from the eve of Shabbat to the eve of the following Shabbat, Sarah always had a candle lit in her tent, that her bread was always blessed, and that a cloud was always covering the tent. Only Sarah's tent. In other words, she was not only personally protected by the Shekhinah, by the glory of God, but it was her righteousness that was a light unto others that kept the candle burning, as well as her ability to give bread, i.e. food, i.e. Torah, all the time. When Sarah had died, all these went away, but when Rivka entered, they all came back. And so Isaac was comforted for the loss of his mother. Now this is the third time that Sarah's name is mentioned in the Torah portion. The fourth and its last time during the account of Abraham's death. We're going to see that. And Abraham expired and died in a good old age, old and satisfied, and he was gathered to his people. So think about it like this. Gathered to what people? It says, Vayasef el amav, his nation, his people. Who are his people? People to come. You understand? He's with the souls who have yet to even enter into the world. That's what that means. And Isaac and Ishmael, his sons, buried him in the cave of Machpelah, in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar, the Hittite, which faces Mamre, the field that Abraham had bought from the sons of Heth. There Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried. Now we should note that Abraham did not die right away in the story. He did see the birth of Jacob and Esav, but as far as we're concerned, here in the Torah, we lay him to rest. And one last thing regarding the life of Abraham. After Sarah had died, Abraham took for himself another wife by the name of Keturah, which comes from the word ketolet, as in incense. And this is very telling, since everything that has to do with smell, especially ketolet, incense, is directly correlated with the Mishkan, with the tabernacle, the sacrificial offering, and the elevation of all things. It is the smell that was pleasing to the nose of God, so to speak, that allowed all these things to come up to him. Keturah bore him 6 sons, one of which was Midian. as in the Midianites. And who would Midian later produce? Let's read from the Midrash. And these are the names of the sons of Midian according to their names in their cities: Ephah, Epher, Chanoch, Abida, or Avida, and Eldah. And the sons of Ephah were Methach, Meshar, Avi, Tsanua, and the sons of Epher were Ephron, Tsur, Alirun, Medin, and the sons of Chanoch were Reuel, Rekem, Azi, Eliashuv, and Alad, and the sons of Avidah were so on and so forth. And afterwards the families of Midian spread throughout the land of Midian. Reuel is a descendant of Abraham, a.k.a. Jethro, Yitro, the future father-in-law of Moses. Do you see how necessary all this is? I'm telling you, man, the seed of Abraham has got some power. But again, Abraham sent them all away because the promise was given exclusively to Isaac. So all the descendants of the seed of Abraham out there in the world today have this yearning in their hearts to come back to their source. And this is why we see so many Gentiles converting to Judaism. True seed of Abraham, which means they always had a Jewish soul in them. So now we have the life and the death. So why indeed was this portion called the life of Sarah? Her name is mentioned 5 times. We have the life and years of Sarah. This shows her significance. It's actually broken down 120 and 7. So it says that even though she was 100, she was like a 20-year-old. And even though she was a 20-year-old, she had the innocence of a 7-year-old. You understand? But again, in a godly manner, of course. 2, we have the death of Sarah, and this shows the impact that she had on Abraham and on his house. 3, the burial of Sarah, which shows the trouble Abraham went through and the merit that she had, because it was going to be given to him as a gift. The guy's like, hey man, sure, I'll give this for you. The mighty Abraham, take it as a gift. Abraham's like, no. I'm paying for this. And he paid him top dollar for it on purpose till this very day. 4, the comfort of Sarah shows the Eshet Chayil, the woman of valor, that she was for all generations to come. The tombs of Abraham and Sarah, a reminder to this very day. Now conclude these stories that we just went through. I've spoken before about relationships of parents and children, grandparents and grandchildren, husbands and wives, all from a scriptural and spiritual point of view, but I've spoken about it extremely cautiously. I myself, I'm not married, okay? I'm not a parent, and so I can't speak from personal experience. I can only repeat what the Torah says, and then I take a step back. I won't even begin to assume the difficulties and the intricate challenges that go on in these relationships. But what I do know and what I can speak about is being single. So I'd like to rededicate this study to all you single, God-fearing people out there who are frustrated, lonely, and fed up. Know this: there's nothing wrong with you, and you're not alone. You just have to understand how it works, and it'll be okay. I was going to focus on something different, actually, in the Parsha originally, but a lot of things had happened, and I feel like this needs to be said. So over the last 4 years, since, well, how should I say, I started walking in a different direction, more so vertical, or at least I'd like to think so. I've noticed there are a lot more single women than men, also, again, amongst people of faith and obviously in the world in general, ratio-wise, right? So, there's a lot of single men also, but men are just boys who get bigger, older, hairier, right? And that's why it's a woman's job to correct that, in a sense, correct that, not the way you think. Not to be his mother, but to be his woman, to inspire him and push him to be the best man of God that he can be. This, of course, can only be done by the hands of a true woman of God, a woman of valor, Eshet Chayil. Now, please keep in mind that as you are praying for God to give you your other half, you must remember that this is the highest gift for the two to become one. Okay, when you find your soulmate, and there is a soulmate, because you're all created as one, and then you were separated, It is the highest gift that you can receive in this world. When Rivka saw Isaac, she got swept off her feet, or in biblical terms, she fell off a camel. Have you fallen off camels lately? Do you think it was because he was an exceptionally good-looking man? I mean, we know that Sarah was gorgeous on a whole nother level, and I'm sure Abraham was a good-looking dude too, but still, they saw each other as they lifted their eyes, which is when they knew. Only then were the things told to Isaac. I believe, as a single man, that God will take care of all my needs. But he only gives us as good as we deserve. And if I want a woman of valor, a princess bride, who loves God and his Torah, then do I myself not have to be a strong man, a man of valor, one who loves God's Torah and keeps it to the best of my ability? I want to marry the daughter of the king. I need to be worthy, don't I? I need to work for it, for her, the same way that later on we're going to see Jacob work for his beloveds. I remember in my 20s when I was a serial dater, this was another life, I would complain to my cousin, who is like my best friend. We were born 2 weeks apart. And again, how I could not find the right one. I couldn't find a girl. And she said something to me that was so profound, and I take it with me until this very day. And I tell it to whoever needs to hear it. And now I'm going to share it with you. She said this. Now listen, this is wisdom right here. Why would you want to be with anyone who would want to be with you the way you are now? I had my, whoa, Keanu Reeves moment over there, and I'd like to apply it to my life today. Do you understand how profound that is? First of all, it makes you take a look at yourself in the mirror and say, would I want to date me? Or would I want someone who wants this incomplete work right now? So what I'm saying is, you have to be very, very real with yourself if you want the truth, right? So I choose to better myself for God and for my wife, wherever or whoever she may be. And I can only pray that she's doing the same for me. But ultimately, it is God who prepares us for one another. How serious are we taking this process? People get married and divorced today so easily because they have their priorities are all messed up. Everything is backwards. You know, there are four levels of attraction, right? There's a physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. This world today works on the physical and then the emotional. And that's why everything falls apart. All four of them are required to even give the relationship a fighting chance. And if you put too much emphasis on the physical or the emotional, then it's a recipe for disaster. Looks will change or fade, and our emotions are so fickle. You know, one day it's like this, and next day it's like that. If something upsets me, then today, I hate you, but today you did something nice for me, so now I love you. So really, what are our emotions? But if you have a spiritual foundation to base all these things on, common beliefs and common goals, and have the mental capacity to inhabit one another, the emotions will be cradled in the right atmosphere and less likely to crumble when tough times fall upon you. And make no mistakes, my friends, they will absolutely. You will be tested as a couple, even more so as a single individual. And if you find the person attractive, in addition to all this, that's just a sweet, sweet bonus right there. And there's no reason why any of us have to settle for less. Rivka was summoned doing acts of kindness and serving others, while Isaac was conversing with God. Rivka entered before the prayer of the man was even complete. So you tell me, does God not have a plan? He sent her already before he began to pray. Where have we seen this before? Or rather, where will we see this? It's in the book of Exodus 4:14. This is when God kept on trying to send Moses to go back, and Moses giving him every excuse in the book why he can't. So, verse 14, it says, and the Lord's wrath was kindled against Moses, and he said, is there not Aaron your brother, the Levite? I know that he will surely speak, and behold, he is coming forward towards you. And when he sees you, he will rejoice in his heart. all this was going on. Why was God actually angry? Because he knew that Aaron was coming. He knew that Moses was saying no. This is for us to understand how things work. We think that the solutions were created based on the problems and prayers we have, but it's actually the opposite. The solutions were here, but you would have never known them if the problem was not created for them. Did you understand what I just said? I'll say it again. We think that the solutions were created based on the problems or prayers that we have, but it is the opposite. The solutions were here beforehand, but we would have never known them, if the problem was not created for them to bring them to light. Have patience and work on your relationships with your Creator before you look for just anyone to fill that gap. I'm lonely. I want something. Yeah, great. You're going to keep being lonely. The answer is not in a person. Your answers come from up there, not from over here. You need just one person, which God quite literally made for you, with you, and you for them. I've made so many mistakes in my life. Sometimes it feels like my past is chasing me down and trying to drag me back to where I swore I'd never go. I've broken hearts, and I've had my heart broken. I've been careless, and I've been mishandled. At this point, who knows just how jaded I am, how jaded we all are. You think I know what I'm doing? I wish I did. I've made so many relationship-oriented mistakes in my life, I could write a novel of exactly what not to do. But we have to keep reminding ourselves, why do we fall? Why are we tried? Why are we struggling? When the time is right, when His time is right, it will happen for you both. It's already been decreed, for goodness sakes. If a relationship doesn't work out, then you should be comforted by the fact that he or she is not your one and you are not theirs. Which means that the one who was created with you together is currently out there looking for you, as you should be looking for them. Have faith. This is how God works. Did He not present Eve to Adam? Did He not send His angel to escort Rivkah to Isaac? So too will this happen for us. But we gotta earn it, baby. We gotta work for it. Ladies, if you want a man of God to lift up his eyes to the heavens and see you, unless you're a woman of valor, that ain't gonna happen. And gentlemen, be gentlemen, okay? Not soft, gentle. You want that Eshet Chayil, right? You want that woman of valor. You better clean up your act, because a true woman of valor is busy fixing the world, and she doesn't have time or the desire to fix you too. It's not her responsibility. She can correct you, but not fix you. Come on, boys. It's time to man up. In the meantime, have faith that God is working tirelessly behind the scenes, but you need to be working on the ground, and God will bring them to you. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother and cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Now they were both naked, the man and his wife, but they were not ashamed. What does this mean? Arumim. Yes, it does mean naked, but the word is referring to the exposed and judgment-free place that they were in, knowing one another as we desire to be known. It's looking into the eyes of your mate and seeing the light of God shine through them. We, like Adam and Eve, were originally created as one soul in one body, but God separated into two in order for us to find one another through our deeds. Again, this too is part of free will, but you have to earn it just like everything else. Nothing was done for you. I'm sorry, nothing was done for you, and nothing will be handed out to you. No participation badges. Make no mistake, because many do in this regard. Because of our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and everything that they did, and Sarah and Rivkah and Rachel and Leah, only because of what they did do we have an audience. And our audience is the fact that we are alive and breathing right here, right now. That's it. So ask yourself, what are you doing with your time? And what are you going to say when your time is up? No free rides. The Torah says so. I'm sorry, that's what it says. This is how God created all things. And it is by those same laws that he governs the universe. And if you want to know how these laws work, learn Torah. You'll understand God and you'll get with the program. But do not despair, my dear friends. I feel you. And I'm here. I'm here for you. And if you'd ever like to reach out for encouragement, sure, here I am. But first and foremost, don't give up on God, because he'll never give up on you. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining me every single week. We are growing exponentially, and it's very, very humbling. I'd like to thank for all the support you've given, for all the calls and the emails and the prayers. Let's face it, we need each other. And again, as far as the emails go, I'm getting on it. There's just so many. So please have patience with me. So stay tuned. Some new things are coming to TOA pretty soon, and I'll let you know all about them. So in the meantime, I hope this teaching did some good. Stay strong. And as always, have a wonderful rest of the week and have a Shabbat Shalom. Bye-bye.